Okay, ginseng is grown from seed. It probably could be propagated vegetatively, but the regulations regarding the harvest of ginseng require that the entire root be harvested. So really, the only way ginseng is propagated is through seed. Ginseng plants generally become reproductive when the root attains a certain size. That could be as early as 2 or 3 years into the growth cycle. It might be, typically in a forest, it would be closer to 8 to 10 years into a life cycle. In a field situation where it's grown under artificial shade, the plants are almost all reproductive at age 2 and definitely by age 3. But there are some forest sites where ginseng plants may be 20 or 30 or 40 years old and never become reproductive. So it has to do with the root being able to achieve a certain size before it actually starts producing flowers. Typically, when ginseng does produce flowers, the flowers will turn into green berries. The berries are botanically called, I believe they're drupes, and they generally contain 2 seeds. The dormancy mechanism of ginseng seed is really pretty interesting because most plants that have berries that ripen in the fall of the year, as does ginseng, the berries are bright red, typically those berries will produce seeds that will sprout the following spring, but not ginseng. The seeds that are inside the ginseng berries will not sprout until the spring following the year that they were dropped, or actually 2 years after they were dropped. So it's an 18-month dormancy process. 2 ginseng seed. This one's got a smile, which indicates that the embryo that's within the seed is fully developed. When this seed was harvested, when it was this big, came out of the berry, it was about that big, and the embryo had not fully developed. That embryo was probably 0.02 millimeters. Well, by the time that this seed is going to germinate 18 months later, that embryo will have grown from 0.02 millimeters to as much as 0.2 millimeters. So there's an embryo inside this seed, a little baby plant, that continues to grow after this berry ripens. And it'll be 18 months before you actually get that smile or that crack on that seed there. So 18-month cycle from berry to the seeds actually sprouting. The first year ginseng plant is a little tiny, weak little plant. It looks like a strawberry leaf, and that's about as big as it gets for the entire first season. And if it's had a good season and it's grown well, it'll produce an apical bud, which will contain the entire plant for the second season. The second year, it may produce 1 small strawberry leaf, or it may produce 2 leaves. Again, this would be in a woodland situation. And generally in the woods, by the 3rd or the 4th year, it'll start to produce a plant that's got 3 or 4 compound leaves. And again, if the conditions are right, if it's a good site, by the 5th, 6th, or 7th year, that plant will indeed start to flower and produce seeds. It does not reproduce particularly well on its own. Ginseng berries that ripen in nature and fall to the ground have about a 2 or 3% chance of actually growing into plants. If you take the time to pick those berries and very carefully plant them when they're ripe, you can get that germination rate up to about 85%.